I'm excited to have you here. Thank you everyone for registering and for coming to this webinar. Today's webinar, we have three panelists. We have Magali from Gale, we have Ben from Exlibris, and we have myself also from Exlibris. With your permission, I'm going to move my head from the center of the screen to the side of the screen in order to, and I'll move my notes, to read a bit intro about each one of the panelists. So I'll start with Magali from Gale. Magali has over 15 years of experience in discovery, metadata and usage in libraries, content providers, and service providers. Magali has worked in various types of libraries and contributed to different metadata working groups and committees internationally, including ABES SC in France, NISO in the US, and UKSG in the UK. Currently, Magali is the Discovery and Usage Manager for Gale, which is part of the Cengage Group. I would like to take this opportunity and thank you, Magali, for presenting with us today. Thank you, Magali. In the center, you see Ben, which is part of Exlibris and has been working with provider and provider content for 17 years, 6 of which in Exlibris Provider Relations team. Ben has been a member of the NISO KBART Standing Committee since 2012, including 2 years as co-chair with Magali from 2014 to 2016. Ben loves working with providers and customers, making sure that everything works for all parties. And last, myself, Noam Fass. I've been part of Exlibris since 2016. I've been managing the provider relations team since late 2023. My team's goal is to make sure that the content which is being provided to Exlibris by content providers like you is full, rich, and accurate. This is in order to achieve full customer satisfaction for our joint customers. So these are the panelists. I'm going to go over real quick the agenda for today. We have 3 main elements. The first element is the new collection creation. So what happens when you have a new offering for your customers and you would like to inform Exlibris that there is a need to add a collection to our database. 2 points that I would like to clarify. When I say collection, or when we say collection during the presentation, you may refer it to as packages. So collection is a package. And the second thing I would like to clarify is the word knowledge bases. When we talk about knowledge bases, we talk about Exlibris products as Alma Community Zone, SFX, and 360. This is a separate product than CDI, the Central Discovery Index. Our next webinar will discuss about the various products and the means of communication, but this webinar will focus on new collections and how we can enhance the existing workflow. So I'm going to talk to you about the existing workflow. Ben will share the new manifest initiative, which is set to accelerate processes and make sure your content is fastly ingested in our knowledge bases. Ben will also share information about the NISO KBART Phase 3 and how it correlates with the manifest initiative. And lastly, we'll hear from Magali, her feedback about working with Exlibris and specifically working with the provider platform. 2 things before we begin. Q&A. You have on your WebEx a small Q&A button. There's also a chat. I highly recommend we use the Q&A because we monitor the Q&A. So whenever you have a question, please feel free to write it in the box and we will monitor it and we will either answer it verbally or address it in the chat. The second thing, this webinar will be recorded. So if you don't have the ability to fully listen to the webinar or you would like to share it with your colleagues, I will send you this link in the chat soon, so you'll be able to share it with your colleagues in order for them to get a listen to this recording or to other webinars we had in the past. So I encourage you to pass this to your colleagues. Last thing before we fully begin is the bottom line. During this presentation, you will hear the word provider platform and the word manifest repetitively. If you are interested, if there is any one of you who doesn't have access to the provider platform just yet, and you would like to see how your content looks exactly like Alma customers sees it, please feel free to reach out to Ben or to myself, and we will grant you credentials so you can have your own provider platform. Regarding the manifest, Ben will present you a new way to pass information about new collections. If you are interested to collaborate with us and expedite your processes, and of course, expedite the way that customers will see your collections, please feel free to reach out to Ben or to myself, and we will talk and have more information about that. So let's get started. Before we move to the manifest and the new initiative and how you can expedite the process, I want to talk a bit about the existing process. How you as a provider are telling us that you have a new offering for your customers and you would like us to present this collection or this package in Ex Libris knowledge bases. So let's talk about the first element in the workflow, which is you, the provider, inform Ex Libris us that there is a need to add a new collection to our knowledge bases. How you're doing it today? The easiest way or the most common way is you email us. You tell us, hey, dear provider relations team, I have a new collection that I would like to be added to your databases. The second option is proactive reach out by the provider relations team. For example, we have the annual collections in 2024. We outreach to over 70 providers, telling them that we know that they have annual collections. When do they expect these collections to be ready? So that we will be ready and we will ingest it for our customers as fast as possible. The third means of communication, unfortunately, comes from customers who report that your content is available for sale on your platform, but is not available on Ex Libris knowledge bases. This is unfortunate. We're really trying to minimize these types of communications, but it happens. So we have a need for a new collection. The first thing that happens is that my team, the provider relations team, analyzes the request, understand what is the need, and then when we understand the need, we open internal ticket. This is a manual process. The provider relation analyst understands the requirement and opens internal ticket. The reason that I'm emphasizing this is because when a ticket exists in our system, that means that we will work on it as much as we can in order to make sure your collection will be on our knowledge base. Your content will be available for our shared customer. But when a ticket is open, there are several back and forth between the provider and between Ex Libris just to make sure that we have all the needed information. And due to time zones and email restrictions, this process may take a while. I'm not saying a long while, but there is a duration and back and forth here between the provider and Ex Libris provider relation team until we understand the full need and we have everything we need in order to open a new ticket for our technical team, what we internally call our operations team, the team who is actually doing the technical team to ingest your files and create the new collection. So as you can see, this diagram has lots of back and forth, lots of cubes here, just to make sure that the collections you have for your customers or for our customers will be available in Ex Libris knowledge bases. Now, if we would have spoken a little less than a year ago, I would have told you that the next step is that either you email us or we email you, letting you know that your content is in our knowledge bases. But to those of you who are familiar with a provider platform, you know that you have now a platform that you can access and see exactly how customers sees your content. So if you asked us to add a new collection, the next step for you is to access the provider platform and to see after a short while whether the collection was ingested and is available for our customers. Those of you who are not yet familiar with the provider platform or do not yet have access, please feel free to reach out to Ben and to myself, indicate which provider you are, and we'll do our best to send you credentials in order for you to have access to the provider platform. This is my part. This is where I pause and pass the wand to Ben. So Ben will tell you about the new exciting manifest initiative and how you can expedite the process we've just seen. Ben, I'm passing it to you.
Thanks, Noam. So yeah, as Noam said, I'm going to be talking about this exciting new communication tool that we've started using in our work with content providers that we call the Manifest. The goal about the Manifest is to speed up the creation of new collections in the Ex Libris knowledge bases. Next, please. So the Manifest builds on our previous efforts to align collections that content providers sell with the collections that we have in across our knowledge bases. So despite having all this data about collections and titles from hundreds of different content providers, we don't actually know how you package your content or when you have new collections available. Someone needs to tell us, and that someone is you. Congratulations. previously, as Noam showed, it was constant back and forth of questions between us to get a collection added. Not always, but sometimes we had clarifying questions that we had needed to ask. So the manifest really looks to streamline this process. So what is the manifest? Advance, please. So the manifest it's a file that that you, the content provider, maintain to tell us about the collections that you have and to make sure that the new collections are identified and processed as quickly as possible. So it's available for use by librarians and their users sooner. Advance, please. So whenever you have a new collection that we should add, you just open up your manifest file, which we'll get a little preview of in a moment. Add a new row to the file with the information about the collection as detailed as you can. Load the file to the Ex Libris servers like our MFT or to your site or your FTP, wherever the files are being delivered. Wait a little while some back-end Ex Libris magic happens. And then, like Noam said, you can go into your provider platform and make sure that that new collection is there, that it looks as you would expect it to, and then also have the details about that collection to pass along to our mutual customers. Next slide. Advance, please. So the collection name and collection ID, which are those first two fields that are there, are mandatory for the process to work. We do strongly recommend sending the comprehensive information about the new collection in the manifest as much as possible, as this is really what's going to reduce that need for the additional communication. So you can see the kind of at least the first chunk of fields in the manifest there. And at the bottom of the screen is a link. Once we have the slides loaded, you can follow that link to documentation about the provider platform and about the manifest, which contains detailed information about all of the fields as well as a template file. Advance, please. Okay, so if you can, there's kind of three different ways of creating or updating the manifest file for Ex Libris to use. So if you can automate your system to opt with the details about those collections, that's really recommended, as it's going to be more accurate and is going to be really less effort in the long term for you. Of course, you can manually generate the file as well. There's kind of a couple different ways to go about that as well. A complete list of the collections that you have, whether or not they actually have a file associated with them, or they're zero title discovery only type of collections. That should really be the goal, the end goal that you have in this. However, if some providers might have many collections and find it difficult to create that list in the short term. If you have 1,000 collections, that you're probably not going to be able to create that by the end of the week or something, right? So while you're working on that that full list, we can also accept a manifest file that includes the new collections only. So this can either include all new collections starting from today onwards, or today meaning the day that you create the file, or you can send files that only contain the new collections each time. It doesn't really matter to us. Either way is going to accomplish the same thing. Next slide, please. Okay. So we're prioritizing collections that are created from this manifest process as well, and you'll see here in a moment how that kind of pans out. And we've seen dramatically decreased time to collection creation from months really to days, which is incredible. It's very exciting for me to see that happen. So what we're going to look at now is kind of the first time process versus the ongoing manifest process on the Ex Libris side. So if you can advance, please, Noam. So the provider loads the file to the Ex Libris servers, and then the first time the provider notifies the provider relations team. We configure the manifest for automation, and then Xlabors fetches that file, and we create kind of a baseline collection list in our database using the unique collection ID that was in the previous slide, the name and ID. The ID is what we're looking for. That's in the manifest. Advance, please. Then from that point onward, anytime you load a new manifest file, when you would like to tell us about a new collection, the automated process ingests the file and compares it with that baseline that we have in our database using that collection ID. And advance, please. If it's determined that there is a new collection, an automated internal ticket is created for the provider relations team with the information, and then advance, please. The provider relation team then verifies that information, does some checks on it, passes it to our content ingestion team to create the new collections to be released to customers. So in the not too distant future, advance, please. Advance again, please. we plan on having the process skip the provider relations team after some testing with each provider, of course, and have the automatically generated ticket go straight to the content ingest team for processing. So that's going to further reduce the time and manual effort spent on new collections. So we'll kind of, once we understand that this process is working and we have all the information that we need, we can just go straight to the content ingest team. Do we have any questions so far? Yeah, we do actually. Is the collection ID in the spreadsheet a different ID from the one assigned an existing collection in the community zone? Yes, it is. This is a unique ID for your collection. It's intended to be your internal identifier for the collection in question. Some content providers that we've talked with have said, but we don't have an internal identifier for each collection. And then I said, there has to be something. Please check with your IT team. And they dig a little bit, and then they find out, hey, it turns out we actually do have a collection ID for each collection. So somewhere in your fulfillment system or something like that, there should be an ID for the collection. It might be in your sales system. It might be in your administrative backend, site backend, platform backend, something like that. Any other questions that we want to go through now? Noam, see anything?
Yes, I see a question here that can you, Xlibris, generate a manifest list of current collections for the vendors? Afterwards, they can update it as needed. So if I understand the question correctly, you're saying, can you generate the baseline for?
Oh, no.
Long answer is we do not have to. Sorry about that. We do not have to do it because there is a way, I would say, for you to only add new rows. We are okay with not having the full list of collections that exist for you today. We are okay with having a manifest file with one row indicating a need for a new collection. And then it's up to you whether you want to keep loading the file with additional rows or send us a new file every time that you need to update a new collection. So yes, it would have been nice if we have the baseline so we can make sure that we have everything we need in our knowledge bases. But to get things started and to make sure we are moving onwards from this spot, we can work with a single file that has a row for a new collection. No need to pass the previous information.
So one thing that we can do, if you're just like, I don't know where to start, we can send you the collections that we have. And you can actually find this as well. There's a list of all my collections on the Customer Knowledge Center, for instance. We can start with that as a start of a conversation to help you build that list. to see if what we have is right, because that's another part that we should also be working on, is making sure that our collections are as in close alignment to what you have, or maybe what you had historically as possible. Great question.
Yep. Ben, I'm answering now the question: are you working with content hosting platforms like Adipon to automate creation of manifest file? The answer is yes. We can work with any entity that knows to produce automated files. We can work together with them. We can have a three-way meeting between you as a provider and the Adipon in that example, and understand how we can automate the process. So if you feel that you are really want to go and try and expedite the processes, let's try and set a meeting between you, the provider, Adipon, and Exlibris, so we can see how we can automate the process.
I do know one thing about Adipon. So Adipon themselves do not. This is my understanding. It could be wrong, so putting that out there. Adipon does create KBART files, but they only create like an A to Z list of all titles from each provider. This is an opt-in thing that they have. So they don't generate like files for collections. So not really that's not really manifest fodder there for them. They might have something internally for providers to manage collection KBARTs. I don't know anything about that because I'm not a provider that works with Adipon. But at least as far as what they have publicly on their site, they don't put out collection files. They only put out A to Z files. So you might need to check with your Adipon representative about the functionality there. I know most providers that are on Adipon that send us collection files, they generate those collection files themselves.
But we are willing to work with Adipon if you would like to ask them to enhance their systems.
Yes.
I just want to put it there. Okay, I'm reading another question. Will you no longer accept any other ways of updating, such as depositing KBART file? Of course, we'll keep on supporting any existing communication. The manifest is just something we are doing in addition to expedite the processes.
And really what the manifest is it's information about those KBART files that you're already sending. So as far as the KBART files themselves, there's no change as far as that goes. Just keep sending those. The manifest file is information about those files. So it's well, I'll talk about this in a little bit, but it's very difficult once the number of files becomes a certain amount to have any idea what those files are and what they relate to. So the manifest really is trying to help solve that issue, and also the more files there are, the harder it is to tell if there's a new one. So that we should be paying attention to. So yeah, don't do anything different. Don't do anything. Yeah, to keep sending your KBART files.
Yeah. How would we use the sheet to update existing collection? Would that be a new row or editing existing row? So it's important to understand, and maybe I should have said it, sorry, Ben. The manifest is only for new collections. So if you want to update existing collection, you will need to run through the regular process of either emailing us or whatever you work with us today. But Ben will talk about it in the next slide, I think. We have some enhancements in the near future, which should address also the updates. Ben, do you want to add about this something?
Talk about it a little bit in a moment.
All right. And okay, I saw a question in the chat. I just want to make sure because it wasn't the Q&A. Let me just see. Okay. Can we use the manifest if we don't have access to the provider platform yet? So first of all, it's very easy to gain access to the provider platform. Just email us and we'll create you the credentials. But yes, of course, the manifest is a separate process than the provider platform. The provider platform is an extra step for you to see how your content looks right now. If you want to build the manifest file with all of your offerings, you can use our provider platform to see what we have on our platform. Doesn't mean that the manifest is directly associated to the provider platform, but it can only help you. Ben, with your permission, let's try and move forward.
There is one clarification here from a provider. I won't say who they are because maybe they don't want to know who they are. but he says I'm not sure that's true. We use content slice functionality, which auto-generates collections. So there might be functionality within Adapon to do this. So that's something that we'll have to look more at, and we will, we can work with Adapon on that. So thank you for that clarification. Let's move along. Next slide, please. So this one is just basically again this one's basically again just to say, hey, as a provider, you can access the provider platform, and there's our email addresses again in case you need to type them in really quick. So yeah, please contact Noam and me if you want access to the provider platform. So again, reiterating, manifest process is currently focused on new collections only, but yeah, there is a possibility for enhancements to this process and for additional enhancements to the new collection process as well. So advance, please. So the first one is what we already talked about. Add new collections, go straight to the content ingest team and bypass the provider relations team. Easy peasy. Advance, please. So there's also the possibility to, at least in some cases, maybe to bypass the content ingest team and have full end-to-end creation of those new collections. So there's a lot of caveats around end-to-end automation. Requires a lot of trust between the content provider and Ex Libris to implement. The data needs to be pretty consistent from collection to collection. There can't be like, oh, well, this collection you have to do this thing, and it's just that collection, and this other collection you do this other thing. You know, it has to be like regular across them. And it also would require extensive testing for each provider to make sure that it's going to work correctly for that provider. So I don't expect end-to-end will work or even necessarily be desirable for every content provider. It would be amazing for those where we can implement it and really allow the providers and Ex Libris to focus more on adding value to the content and the relationship and building upon it rather than worrying about these new collections all the time. Advance, please. So with that full list of collections, remember we were talking about adding just new collections. We have the full list of collections. We could also potentially manifest updating, potentially automate, updating collection names when they change, file names when they change, your collection level URLs, and those kinds of things in the systems as well. So that hits on that point. These kinds of things require a lot of manual work on the provider relations and the content ingest teams. So automating this would really allow us to have collection names and be more in line with your branding and create a more intuitive and seamless user experience between the Ex Libris knowledge bases and the provider site. Allow us to be a little bit more lock and step there. Advance, please. And then there's the ability to have upcoming collections and collections that are not yet live on your site to be created, which is another exciting possibility. So we have mutual customers that look in the Ex Libris knowledge bases and ask us when a new collection will be added to the KB pretty much the moment that your sales team notifies them about it. So the way that the KBs work and the way that our systems are set up currently, however, just kind of makes it impractical to add a collection to the KB ahead of launch since links don't work and the content isn't actually there yet. So we would like to offer a way for a librarian to see that an upcoming collection is going to be available and to be able to pre-configure it for activation so that it will be all ready to go when that collection is actually live. Next slide, please. So the Ex Libris manifest process wasn't created on its own in a vacuum. It is based on the upcoming KBART recommendations around including a manifest file as well. Next slide, please. And let's see, advance, I think. Yes. So what is KBART? So I have to say this all the time. It stands for Knowledge Bases and Related Tools. It's a NISO working group made up of librarians, content providers like yourselves, and KB suppliers like us. As Noam said earlier, I've been on the KBART Standing Committee since 2012. Phase 3 refers to the upcoming changes to the KBART recommended practice, which is currently being drafted. Incidentally, the phase 1, 2, 3 business, none of that is actually in the recommended practice, sort of a colloquialism. So we currently believe that this draft will be ready for public comment by the end of the year. Cross my fingers, and maybe even published by the end of the year. Advance, please. KBART was created because content providers were creating different types of files for Ex Libris, for Serial Solutions ProQuest, which is now part of Ex Libris, OCLC, EBSCO, and other suppliers, and was really a wasteful process. So metadata should be interoperable, and it shouldn't have to create multiple types of metadata for the same purpose, right? So KBAR came together to agree upon what data should be transmitted from content providers to KB suppliers for use by libraries. And it's very flexible and allows for additional things beyond those recommendations as well. Advance, please. KBART phase 1 and phase 2 were focused on the titles that are in a collection or in a single KBART file. Things like the file name, the titles, ISSNs, URLs, all that sort of stuff. But in the 10 years since that phase 2 was published, it's 10 years, that's crazy. As we found that, yeah, some providers have many files. And like I said before, it quickly becomes impossible to understand what file goes with which collection, what that collection should be named. It's the file name has a new name, but the collection in our system is an old name. How does it match up? All this sort of stuff. Advance, please. So KBART phase 3 adds on to phase 2 by including recommendations for a manifest to describe the files being sent and to kind of preemptively answer questions that the data recipient may have about the metadata. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Of course, phase 3 also includes other enhancements. So stay tuned on the KBART page, on the NISO page, NISO listservs, and their socials and stuff to hear more about that as we get closer to the end of the year. Next slide, please. So while the initial fields of the manifest are identical, the ones that actually pretty much just exactly the ones that you saw in that little preview, in that preview slide, they're identical. There are some differences between the KBART recommendations and the Ex Libris manifest. So those first 15 fields are the same, and the expected values for those fields are all taken from the KBART, the upcoming KBART recommended practice. That could change somewhat before publication, but if there's any changes there, we'll align with them. I don't expect anything too radical, but we'll see. The manifest file itself is in TXT for KBART and Excel for Ex Libris, although we'll soon be able to handle TXT too. One little teeny tiny change. In the Ex Libris manifest process, we do ask for 13 additional fields to facilitate the collection creation and automation, especially as we're trying to develop that option to have the information bypass the PR team and go straight to content ingest. KBART recommended practice has certain formats that they expect and assumptions about the data that is being transmitted. That's why they're a recommended practice, right? That's the whole point of it. Whereas Ex Libris KBs have to take a broader view of content and accept a wider range of file formats and schemas other than KBART, such as CSV, Excel, MARC, XML, that kind of thing. KBART also assumes that files completely overwrite the contents of the collection in the KB, whereas Ex Libris KBs have the option to only add and update titles to not remove them. So that requires some additional information for us. So since the basis of the information that we're asking for is identical to the KBART manifest and is in alignment with that, we're really hoping that this process is useful for you in not just improving your content in Ex Libris KBs, but also in collaborations with other KB partners and data recipients who use KBART files too, libraries and consortia, that kind of thing. So yeah, we're really wanting to make this be interoperable. Any other questions before I pass it along to Magali?
Then there was one question. Can you communicate when a collection has become closed through the manifest?
Yes. Yes, you can. If you look in the documentation, there is information about that.
Okay, Ben, I think that was a very nice overview about the new initiative, about the upcoming enhancement that we plan to do, and explanation about how NISO Phase 3 will be integrated inside the manifest. So Ben, thank you so much for taking the time to present to us today. And I'm moving the wand to, I think for me, one of the most important parts here is the provider perspective. Magali, thank you for joining us today. Floor is
Hi,
yours.
hi everybody. Oh, thank you very much for this lovely introduction before. Thank you, Ben, for all that information. It is very interesting to hear how things are evolving. Before going to the tangent, I was just to mention, because it came out to my mind when I was hearing Ben explaining about the manifest. I belong to a content providers discovery interest group. We actually recently, actually last week, we hear about a presentation about KBAR 3 and the manifest. And after that, we had kind of a little exchange between us, and we actually realized that the manifest is kind of the must-have tool for those working in discovery. So you may not call it manifest, personally, I call it inventory or audit, but it's kind of, we all in somehow, in some shape and form, we are all trying to keep track of what we have, what metadata we send and to whom and etc. So it's really great to hear how things are evolving. But anyway, apology for the tangent. Let's come back and focus on the presentation I'm here for, that is about the provider platform. As I mentioned, my name is Magali Vascones. I have been working on discovery for many years. During my career, I has been very fortunate because I has been able to work from different perspectives, and from the library, from the content providers, and as well, for 7 years, I was the service manager of the UK National Knowledge Base. Yeah, that was 10 years ago, but I did it for 7 years. So anyway, I like to say it because I really like to believe that actually I can ponder the different sizes of working in discovery. And as we should imagine, I'm very process oriented. I like to work with metadata, and I really enjoy working with discovery. It's a very niche, but you need kind of, be into the granular details, into the metadata of the metadata, and without losing, sight of the landscape. I currently work for Gale. I am the discovery manager there. Gale is part of Engage. It's a large content provider with extensive and diverse portfolio. So we have aggregated periodical databases, subject-based databases, we got ebooks, primary sources, etc. So we work with all the major discovery services. We provide data feeds. Oh, sorry, no, I didn't say to start the presentation. If you can, thank you. So we provide metadata feeds, article level and publication level. We use different formats. So yeah, we are in us. Yeah, we're very engaged in the area of discovery. So before we start discussing the provider platform, I would like to cover what is the discovery work and emphasizing what is a discovery services. I'm doing it because many of us probably we work directly on the subject. That is our day-to-day. We're fully immersed and grounded in this field. But depending where you work, you may not have a person exclusively dedicated to discovery. And discovery is kind of a very complex topic. It looks simple at first glance, but it is not. So it is full of acronyms, the terminology, it requires technical knowledge, soft skills, and etc. So if you allow me, let me start very briefly from the beginning. Like this, we all are on the same page. So last thing before starting, My presentation is not only about how Gale is working or how Gale manages metadata and etc. Because that's very particular to us. But I have used all these pieces of various information as has gathered through my working experience and trying to give you, the best information I can. Next slide, please. So very briefly, I know many of us, we know it, but, it's always good to remind us where we are, everybody is on the same page. The Discovery is a tool that allows the library patrons to have the one search experience. The Discovery service actually has 4 elements, a user interface, a central index, which includes article level metadata. It has a knowledge base, which includes publication level metadata and a link resolver. So if you go to the Ex Libris portfolio, you may have here these 4 elements by the product names. So you hear about Primo or Summon, that is still there, which is the user interface. The central index is called CDI, and the knowledge base and the link resolvers is where, what you call ALMA. You may have heard a lot about the ALMA community zone. So as we are zooming in, let's say, on the subject, let's say that, don't forget that knowledge bases is a very important piece. So the metadata we send to knowledge bases is important because a knowledge base is the database that knows which content is where, so in which content provider is the content. It knows if the library has rights to the content, and it knows where the content can be accessed from. Next, please. So to make this discovery working, all this about, there is 3 parties. That is kind of the complexity of working in discovery, because we need involvement of 3 parties to make it work successfully. So a discovery journey will be successful if the service provider, the content providers, and the libraries, everybody do their part. In this content providers, we provide, and discovery providers, service providers, we work to benefit of our mutual customers, that are the libraries. That helps us as well, the discovery from the content provider perspective, to make our content more discoverable. And it contributes for the libraries to make a success on the discovery journeys that start from the library tools. So it's kind of a win-win situation, but BRT. So it's a lot of calibration there all the time. Next, please. So how actually that works? We hear a lot, this works like this, it works like that. It's all about basically metadata integration. So this diagram, I don't know who made it. It has been around for many years, but it is actually very good. It is very self-explanatory. It describes the metadata flow to knowledge bases. Content providers, we send the metadata to knowledge bases because it makes content more findable and allow library patrons to actually use the library. It's necessary to highlight as well that the metadata flow from CDI and ALMA, there's 2 different metadata flows here. So how we are concentrating right now on everything about the provider platform is about the metadata flow for ALMA. So if you send data to CDI, for example, it is good, but if you are not sending metadata to ALMA, you may want to talk to Ex Libris, so Ben or Noam, to know if you should be sending data to the knowledge base or it will be beneficial or not. It will depend on, the kind of products you have, how you want to describe them. Next, please. Yeah, so we understand now, it's all about metadata flow. We provide data, Ex Libris ingest the data. But, that is not enough. Just to send metadata is not enough, And here I kind of using my knowledge base manager hat. And to integrate metadata into another system, knowledge base providers, needs to understand the products and the content that is described through this metadata. And this is probably is actually that is the what is related to the manifest presentation that we hear before, coincidentally. So we know our products, we know our content, and we need to describe it. We know as well that some part of our content is difficult to describe. It's always some part of that it doesn't fit to the common standards. But anyway, metadata, we need to send that. But okay, so we send the metadata to the knowledge base. We're content providers. We know that there is data integration rules, specification requirements, and timelines. So as we communicate the complexity of our content, we need to hear back as well as content providers. We want to know what happened with our data. Now, was it enough? Was it good? It has been ingested or not. Regardless the type of content provider you are, if you want to work better with Ex Libris, you should be asking yourself these questions each time metadata is gone. You need to what happened, and then should you do. Another way as well, another times where you may want to know more about what happened with the data you sent is about troubleshooting, for example. No system is infallible. Errors are everywhere. Everybody make mistakes. So you should be, you need that information to troubleshoot, to resolve issues. We work in metadata. Metadata is precision. So we need to see what is there. Another aspect as well, you may want to know more, or how this data flow is happening on the other side, is about timings. Is customers asking, there is an appetite to immediacy. Librarians and users want the data, for try now. But the data delivery and the data ingestions, they are not necessarily always able to fulfill that desire. Next. Thank you. So now we got the background. So now let's talk about the provider platform. So that's the provider platform has been recently launched. So Ex Libris has this very good web page there with lots of information, screenshots, videos that I will not repeat here. On that page, they has listed all the benefits of this new tool, and I agree with them. My personal takeaway is transparency. This is a very well received new tool, very welcome, something that we needed. It will enhance the conversations that we have with our publisher relation contact. We have been, working in discovery, working with Ex Libris, kind of for a very long time, we have been in the blind spot because, as I mentioned before, all the occasions we may want to know more, when, how, what happened. We haven't been able to access that information quickly. We have managed because we have been working for many years. But the ones they has been working for a long time, they know it haven't been always easy. As an early adopter, so my first feedback to Ex Libris on this tool, it has been that it's a game changer. And I'm confident, it's not only, I know the only one that has been trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. And I'm really hoping, to provide the platform to give me that information I need. So I'm very, very happy with this development, actually. So what the provider platform will help us to understand the metadata flows, what happens, because regardless the size of your business, if you're working with discovery partners, you are investing on time, on technical skills, and we need to have a clear understanding of what is going on and what's happening. We want to speed up things with our customers for the sake of our customers. We want to work better. So actually, I wish to all discovery service has something like this. That will be really. But I am very grateful actually that it's actually Equilibris who have made the move and take the lead in this area. Next, please. Okay, so this is what you can see already these screenshots probably in the previous slides. So I think that when you see that this image, the first things on your head probably the pop out the question is, oh, will resolve all the issues? That's it. Will that be the magic answer? Well, personally, I don't believe in magic. I would love to, but it's not. But it will help. It will help a lot. And it depends your own circumstances, your own, context. So it will save time, definitely, to identify where the issues are, save time to gather the information, establish troubleshooting. It will start a new chapter on this discovery partnership that we got. But first of all, the first thing, if you haven't had access to this tool yet, I think you should have access to have, contact Noam and Ben. They want to give you access to that, and use it and explore it. Ask for support, ask for training. They are there to help. They want to, ask questions about definitions, as a glossary. It depends what you want to use it for. Anything that you will need to help you understand, facilitate the usage, and I'm sure they are willing, they want to be ready to support you. Next, please. So that is where we are now. So it is where we are, where we were, where we are, and what we want to do more. So it has the access, required access. We didn't have the visibility. Now we have it. Is that enough? How we want to use it? We actually not sure about. Next, please. So what you want to use it for, the provided platform, it will depend on your content portfolio. It will depend on how long you have been working with Equilibris, which issues you have, or maybe you don't have any issues, so you want just to use it to monitor the data integration, how things are going, and how you're gonna integrate this tool in your internal workflows. It depends how many people are working in discovery on your sites, how your existing workflows are, how your collections are your collections static, are your collection moving, you remove and add from the same collections, or you have new collections all the time. It depends which questions you have, and it depends your internal resources. So it's really, it's only using it that you're going to discover this. We haven't had this type of solution before, so we are all actually in this kind of exploring moment. But we have to ask questions as well. When you use it, ask questions. Do we have enough information there? Do we need more information? Do we understand what is there or not? Do we need help? Do we need support? Is anything missing? It's only this answering to this question is use cases, really, that will determine is the provided platform is actually the Pandora box or a golden fleecy. But it will change things. So I really encourage everybody to have a go. If you are new in discovery, go for it. And if you have been there for years, have a look as well. I'm sure you already have done it. So what is next is up to Equilibris, definitely, because they are the tools owner. But it's also up to us, the content providers. How we use this tool, what else we need, will inform future developments. And for those that work in product management, how that works. It's the user feedback that shapes the solutions. That's all from me, really. Thanks.
Thank you, Magali. I think your final statement was on spot. If there are any needs to enhance the provider platform, the first spot or the first resource that we would need is to hear it from you, content providers. So Magali, you summarized it amazingly. I have 2 questions, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
So the first question is, you mentioned that you like the transparency, but there was another bullet says minimizing or assisting address customer issues. My question is, do you feel that the provider platform, since you gained access to the provider platform, has helped you answer customer questions without the need to approach Ex Libris?
In that circumstance, as I have been using the main usage I have done for the private platform is actually to do my audit or my inventory or my manifest. To be completely transparent, the great majority of our issues for Gale, it has been that related to the CDI workflow, etc. But it has been a great tool. We don't have many questions from the knowledge base, but the questions that we have about the knowledge base, on a way or another, we already have kind of a workflow. But if I didn't have my workflow already established, the provider platform will have really the prime spot there.
Understood. Thank you. And my second question is, are you the only one from Gale who are using the provider platform, or are there any other Gale?
At the moment, I am the only one, basically because I need to understand what will be the best work, how integrated in our internal workflows. So Gale is it's a very large, we're very, 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 very many teams working. So I feel that it will be easy. It wasn't my previous content provider job. Probably will be have more easier, to manage that. Again, as well, so when I was describing where you are in your portfolio, what status of your collections, Gail have been working with Exclibris for a very long time. And we got many collections that's already there. We have the workflows already installed. Troubleshooting, we need to start deciding there, but slowly, after I do a lot of training internally, I will probably start opening up and say, okay, you can use it for this, you can use it for that. But it will require from my side some internal training.
Understood. Magali, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your experience. I would like to quickly summarize, since we have 1 minute. We saw the new manifest initiative, which is set to expedite our processes. It's not replacing any existing communication or any processes. It's just another enhancement to make sure our customers will get your content as fast as possible. Magali did an amazing job presenting her sentiment about the provider platform. If you have any interest to add yourself to the provider platform or to have the manifest be part of your workflows, again, please feel free to email either Ben or myself. We'll be happy to have a conversation and help you get started. Ben, Magali, I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much, and hopefully we'll see you in the next webinar. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.